Hey everybody, it's Allie Edwards, and I am here today diving into a look at my processes for my 2025 Week in the Life album. I did the documenting for this back in early June and have finally had a chance to spend a bunch of time here at my desk putting it all together. So bringing all my words and photos together. So this video is going to be a little bit different from some of the other videos I have done in the past, only because I did the first parts of this, or I set up my actual kind of design formula using Monday as my guide, and I didn't film myself because I wanted to give myself lots of freedom to change things around, move things, do, just not have to have the pressure of the video on there. So the way that I would like to talk about this and how I've put this particular video together is I'm going to talk about some different parts in the album. One of the things that I knew about this, well, let's step back a little bit. When our collection came out this year, I put together an album formula to follow because I love that for this project specifically. There's 7 days. I like to establish a design formula and then I like to follow it, which is the same thing that I have done this year. So one of the initial things that I knew that I wanted to include in my design formula was a full page photo spread, or a 2-page photo spread, meaning that it would go across 2 pages in my album, my big photo here. I printed it 14 inches wide by 8.25 inches tall. It gets trimmed down a little bit lower than that, or a little bit smaller than that on the edges, because of where I'm ending up putting it. So in the flow of how my album was set up, I have 2 spots that have scalloped edges on the outside. So 2 products that we released that had scalloped edges, and you'll see those in a minute here. So this photo, these 2-page photos, this full page, spread across 2 photos is going to go like that, and then there's a 2x2 page protector that will sit in the middle, and this will be the same for each day. So here you can see that scalloped edge. That was a page that I put together, so it had the 3x8 paper and then the day of the week paper. This was part of what I did when I first put this first set up my formula, right? This was back again before I did the documenting. So what I've decided in terms of a home for that element, the plastic quote element, is that it's going to live right on top of the patterned portion, the pattern paper portion, and this is where the scalloped edge is going to be with the backside of my photo spread. So you're going to see that. After this initial part, I'm going to walk you through what a full day looks like. I just wanted to show you this idea first because this was one of the first things I thought of, and I actually went through and printed all of these big giant photos first, and I picked ones that were all from my yard or my garden. So they're either flowers or they're things that are happening outside. Depending on what season of life you're in, you may have big full page photos with lots of people in them, or of your pets, or of up close something. This is part of what's cool, is that you get to decide what you want to do. Okay, so let's start looking at a full day here. Again, I'm going to show you Tuesday in this particular video because this is the flow of what I'm doing. If you're looking at my blog post today, you're going to see all of Monday. I'll be sharing the rest of the days coming soon here on the blog. So a couple things to note. One is I did take photographs of 2 pages from my notebook. So I used the notebook when I was actually doing the documenting week. So I took a photograph of the ING word page, and I took a photograph of the by the numbers page, and you can see those here in the first spread for Tuesday. Is I have the ING words as a printed out as a full page photo, and then the by the numbers as a 3x4 photo. What I just cut out and printed was a photo that goes on top of the 4x4 card. That one is actually 3 inches by 2.5 inches. And so if you look on the blog post, I have a list of all of the photo sizes that I ended up using here. Hopefully that can take a little bit of the guesswork out of it for you. Once I established what those photo sizes were for each day, then I was able to just follow that formula. So that first photo got added to the outside of the 4x4. That's added into my album as a page in and of itself. What I'm doing right here is then for each day of the week, I stamped the date using one of our stamp stamp set, so that says Tuesday, and I put that inside of the Avery Index tab. So that first photo is going to get added onto the front, and then on the back I will be adding a 4x4 photo. So when I'm adding photos into this project, I don't necessarily do like all the ones in the morning or at the beginning, and then, you know, as the day goes on, it goes throughout the day. Some years I have done that more, but most of the time when I'm looking at my photos, I'm just picking ones I like. I'm like, oh, this one feels good right there. You know, maybe it's a photo of Anna, like on as you'll see on Monday, I have a photo of Anna sitting at her vanity on Monday. So on Tuesday, in the same location, I'm adding a photo of Audrey sitting at her vanity. I don't have that for every day, but that was fun for the first 2 days there to add those in. So I'm just using rolling adhesive. Again, that has the page attacher on the outside. I go through all of that in that original post of how I set my album up, some of those basics. So this is more focused on adding the photos and the additional content. So I do a lot of trimming too. I use my X-Acto knife and a metal ruler there to trim things down. All right, so that took care of the 4x4. Then the next page here in my formula, where I have the by the numbers, and then I have a 4x6 photo and a 3x4 photo. So those were the next two things that I had printed out and added in there. For each of my 4x6 photos, I'm adding one of the plastic half circles that say today looked like this, and that's just getting stapled onto whatever 4x6 photo I decided to add into this page protector. You'll see in a couple other spots I run some things through my sewing machine, but using the tiny attacher stapler is a great way to add on those plastic pieces. So that's what I did for that one. Then moving on to the next spread in my day, I'm taking the ovals from the by the number kit and I'm cutting off the part that says life and numbers, and that's getting stapled to the bottom of a 3x4 screenshot of my photo archives. I'll be using the bottom part of that oval in another location that I'll talk about later on, so that's not getting I will be using that, and you'll see that in a minute. Then I have the watercolor card. This is from the journal card, or there was a paper and card pack. I'm adding moments on the top. That is the little plastic piece, and then this is what I am going through or moving through the sewing machine. The photo that I added to that scallopy watercolor is 5 inches by 3.25 inches, and that will be the same for each day. Then on the next page in the album, I'm cutting up 3 small photos. Those photos are 2 inches by 1.5 inches, and they are going to go in the 1, 2, and 3 location on this page here. Another thing that I did that you might not be able to see right now, but on the Monday card, each day, on the Tuesday card, in my spread, there is a day of the week card. That has a 3x3 photo added on top. That's where you see the Tuesday is. I covered up the scallop on that because that's what I felt like doing, and added a 3x3 that just fits on the top of that card. So this is a very, color, each day of the week has a color assigned to it. And so I'm kind of leaning hard into that. Then we come into the spread that has the large 2-page photo that is spread across it with the 2x2 page protector inside. So as the week goes on, I will have less things to add into the 2x2. This is what ends up being where my extra photos are. So for each of the 2x2 squares, or when we get to this place in my album formula, I took a chipboard piece from the main kit that has the day of the week, and I run that through the sewing machine to add that onto one of these little squares. And on the back side, I added the thankful for this week in my life stamp. So I repeat that on, Wednesday is going to look the same with the Wednesday chipboard, and then I'll have the stamped sentiment on the back of that. So that is one thing that's getting repeated. You can see here I'm trimming up my 2x2 photos. So again, this is having the 2x2 page protectors are a great way to add in a bunch of extra photos, or maybe you did screenshots of things, any of those different things that you collected. And if you need more than one sheet or more than one 2x2 page protector in there, you could totally do that as well and add in a variety of things. Or maybe you don't want to do sticker paper for your gratitudes, or for what you want to remember, which I'll be showing you something that I did with those in a little bit, but they could also go into these 2x2 pockets. I also am taking two of the plastic half circles, the black and with the days of the week on it, paired with the day of the week that's handwritten. That got stapled back to back, and that is then in the pocket. So then you can see I'm just kind of going through and filling in the pockets. I want to have them on the front and the back, so that's dictating how many pockets I end up using and whether or not I cut off the extra along the outside edge, which I end up doing. So for Monday's the only day for me that I use the full size of the page protector with the 2x2s. The rest of the days are cut down. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off the extra pockets along the outside edge so that it's tailored specifically to the amount of pockets that I ended up using on this guy here. All right, so adding that in there, and then I'm going to be trimming along the outside edge. I always move things around too. Once I get them in there, then I'm like, oh, I want to move this. In the end, I believe that I actually moved all of them so that the half circle pocket is on top, or sitting right above the day of the week. Even on this one, I think I end up moving it later on. So that's not really important, but it's something that I did as I was going through here. So here's where I just lay it right on my cutting board or my cutting mat, my trimmer. Whew. Put it on my trimmer, trim that off. And then on some of these, I am adding some of the phrase stickers from the main kit. Also, you could go into your stash and pull out probably lots more phrase stickers if you have them too. I love the photo spread across 2 pages. On each of the first page of those spreads, I'm adding the chipboard that says the story just right on there because the photos tell a story also. On there, then you can see the second page here. Let's see, I'm moving things around still. That's kind of what happens. I think I end up putting another page in, or another 2x2 in there later on. All right, so originally when I set up my formula, this color blocked page, the color block was facing the 2x2 pockets. But as I decided on as I made the decision that I wanted to do a photo that was spread across 2 pages, I decided to turn these over, turn over the scalloped page, and then I'll be adding photos to the back of that. But what I love that this did then is it gave me scallops along both edges of these full page photos, or these photos that are spread across 2 pages. One of them is an open scallop and one of them is a closed scallop. So when I am sizing my photos here, I said I originally printed them at 14 by 8.25. They do get trimmed down a little bit in order to accommodate the scallops on both of these pages. So for this one, what I decided to do is use one of the stamps that says One Little Week in My Life, and I'm going to repeat stamp, or actually stamp it 3 times along the edge of the scallop. Some of my pages with the scallops have a bigger space, some of them have smaller space. I didn't try to make them perfectly perfect. All right, then on the back side where I have this color blocked page, I'm going to add 3 photos. These photos measure 5.5 inches by 2.5 inches. So looking through my photos, picking some that could be cropped to a pretty strong horizontal is what I am doing on here. Again, this is what gets repeated then each day. So once I have this formula established, the work is really in cropping the photos and adding them into the different homes that I have created for them. So on this page here, I'm going to look at the one that I did on Monday. I am taking the Remember plastic half circle. That actually is going to get stitched around the outside edge. I'm going to stitch a whole frame on this one before adhering it. Before adhering it down, so it's the one that's in the center, and then I will adhere the other 2 on top of there. So this is part of the next little phase in the album. So on some days, as it gets farther along in the week where I have fewer photos, the actual formula for the day ends with this page. For the days earlier in the week where I still have more photos and I still wanted to do some additional photo enlargements, that's what you'll see next before we get to the transparency that begins the next page, or the next day in the album. So adding on a few more stickers All right, here's my back-to-back full page photos. Okay, so for this one, I did a photo of the yard. Again, it's just what I love. And then I did a photo that has the girls' fingernails because we had gone to get their fingernails done as a summer treat, as a celebrating the end of school. So for this, again, this was earlier in the week, so I still had lots of photos and photos that I wanted to enlarge. So that's how this page becomes 2 full page back-to-back photos that end Tuesday, or that end this, and that's Monday is the same. The other thing that I'm going to add on here is the vellum pocket, and you'll see me come back to that in a minute. I'm adding a couple more stickers on there. This is essentially what I do in the end after I get everything into all my photos printed, everything where I want them to be in the album. Then I'm going back in and adding some of these little phrase stickers, which I really liked that sheet of those this time. You'll probably see those again in the future. So there I can see that I needed another photo, so that was something that I was going to go do and add in, and I'm thinking that maybe that's going to happen next. Let's see. This is, you can see where I'm still kind of thinking through the process. All right, so for this one, this is the Vellum Bits of Life pocket. I make the executive decision that I'm going to use those scalloped currently pages in something else, and so I'm going to use those vellum pockets as a way to hold a little tag from the By the Numbers kit, as well as a chipboard piece that has the day of the week, and that you'll see me work on that in a couple minutes here, so I haven't actually made that decision, because sometimes I jump around when I am working on this, especially since this is Tuesday. I got Monday mostly established, and then Tuesday sometimes asks new questions, right? And I need to answer new questions. Or the next day sometimes asks and or answers questions. All right, so flipping through there, I added in another 2x2 that's stamped along the edge. And you can see that I had just stapled it in place, or excuse me, paper clipped it in place as I was kind of thinking through what did I want to do next. So one of the next steps that I did do was I had the idea that what if I added some things to this transparent page? So this is the page that is kind of like the opener for each day of the week. And so the first thing that I decided to add on there were some of the die cut numbers. So I documented starting on June 2nd. So this is the 2 is for the actual day of the month. I am taking some of the smaller alpha stamps here, which I love this particular set. I love some of the letters have the closed in version there. So I'm going to put June, spelling June, and that is going to get stamped onto this transparency with StazOn ink. And I'm going to do a test first so that I make sure that I like the way that it looks. But what's going to happen is I'm going to move the number over a little bit so that it makes some space for the word June to go down the outside edge. And you can see there I grabbed a piece that I had trimmed off earlier just to do a little test. Worked great. So I'm diving in. So this is going to get repeated for each of the transparencies. In addition to the die cut and the stamping, I'm also going to add, I'm going to pick one of these these phrase word stickers and add that on to each one of these as well. So I love coming up with a little bit of a different idea. Like I said, originally I didn't plan to add anything else onto the front of these, but once I started kind of playing around with that idea, as you'll see in a minute here, I come up with a few other things. So I'm using black and white twine with the little chipboard day of the week tag, and then some of the tags from the By the Numbers kit there, and that is what is going to get slipped into the vellum pocket. So I like this little embellishment. You could do lots of things with this. You could do a larger circle that could fit inside there. You could do a photo that could also fit inside there. But for me, I'd already figured out ways to incorporate the majority of the photos. So I like having something that just sits on top of the full page photos. All right, so moving on to Tuesday, going to continue with this new formula that I'm establishing here where I'm adhering on the actual date, and then I'm stamping the word June, and then I am adding a word phrase sticker. So I'm going to do this again for each of the upcoming days, and then I had another idea that was sparked as I continued to work on these, and I'll show you what that ended up being here next. But before we move on to that, this is where I'm just going through, I'm picking a tag, I've got my chipboard. Again, repetition. Repetition is big for me, especially in a project like this where, I am following a very specific formula. For me, it's always helped me get this project done. So I'm eliminating some of the decisions that I have to make. Each time I turn the page in the album, I really, really appreciate having a formula for this project. And then I also really appreciate other projects that I do that don't have a formula, such as December Daily, where I am free to build unique pages for each day. In this case, though, for this project and the amount of content that I put together for it, or that I gather for it, it makes it so much easier to have a formula. So continuing on then with these days of the week, and then let me show you what I ended up adding on to these. So the next thing that I got curious about and kind of was like, maybe I do want to add more things on there. So you had seen where I had cut the top of the oval that had life and numbers. I cut that off and I used that on top of a little collage of photos. So here I'm using that same stamp again, this thankful for this week in my life, really kind of going in hard on that particular sentiment. And then I decided to take that oval and use a square punch to punch out a 2x2 portion of that. I was like, what if I add this on there too? That might be really fun. It brings in the color for the day. It goes back to the gratitude piece, which is always going to be an important part of memory keeping for me. Obviously, I'm repeating that in multiple places. There's also other sentiments in the products that you could grab if you wanted to, but this was what made the most sense for me and what I was doing. So I'm going to repeat this same thing again for each of the different days, and it gets stapled onto the transparent page. And I'm just using, again, following the color scheme for each day of the week, cropping that out, and then adding it onto there with a tiny attacher stapler. And I think I'm stapling it twice. Nope, just once. Okay, just like that. All right, so then that gets repeated. And then I had another idea. This idea came about as I was trying to decide, do I want to take some more of the content that is in the notebook and bring that into the actual album? So I've mentioned this previously, but for me this year, the notebook is really what I used during the documenting week. That's where I put everything. I did do blog posts each day that had a little bit of additional information and my photos, but the words all got added into the notebook. And so I knew that I was going to be storing the notebook or figuring out a way to add the notebook into the album, which I end up doing that with some ribbon, and I can't remember if it's in the blog post, some ribbon and red line tape to hold the ribbon in place that then you just tie up the journal. But what I for some reason I got curious about, what if I took sticker paper and made 2x2 squares that had either the gratitudes and or things that I wanted to remember. It's kind of a combination of those different pieces from the notebook itself. And I just made a little title. One of them said gratitudes and the other one said remember. And I set up a 4x6 canvas, knowing that a 4x6 can result in 6 2x2s, and printed it directly on Mako sticker paper. And I actually, with this one, I ran these 4x6. I cut up the sticker paper into 4x6 sheets, and I put it in my Epson PictureMate printer and printed out these little 4x6s that would have 6 2x2s on top, so that I could add them right onto the transparency. I absolutely love how this turned out. I am so thankful for this as a solution. I think that the sticker paper probably looks a little bit better on the lighter colors, but it looks good enough for me to feel like it was a really decent solution. And it's something different that I haven't done before in the same way. And I think that also made me really happy. So for each day, I just went in and looked at what I had written down in the notebook, and then organized them on this little 4x6 so that I could then just simply trim out the 2x2s and add those onto the transparent page here. Just literally made me so happy. So if you're not into the sticker paper, or you don't like how that looks or whatever, this is where I was saying you could add these kind of 2x2s into the 2x2 page protector that's inside of the photo spread, the full 2-page photo spread. You could add those in there. You could print them on color. You could print them on white or, black with white type. You could play around with that or play around with the colors for the particular day. You could also add these on the other side of this transparency. That's the really bold color is on one side, and the lighter color obviously is on the other side. But this, like I said, made me super happy, and I feel like I needed to wait until the end of the process to make a decision on where I wanted these to go or if I wanted to add them into the album. So I was really happy that I did that. Then I decided that I wanted like a secondary title page. So I have a page that has the days of the week pattern paper with this 1 week, 7 days title, but I wanted to reiterate in another place the numbers at the actual day, the actual days that the documenting was happening. And I really liked the die cut numbers with the June. So I had taken this photo, I think on Sunday. It's a photo of the big chalkboard that we have in our house, and my gardening hat's hanging on there. And I decided to add the digital version of the 1 week, 7 days on top of the photo, and then I printed it out here at home. Obviously, doing all my printing at home, I use either an Epson PictureMate PM400 or I use an Epson XP15000. That allows me to print 13 by 19 for those big photo spreads. But here I did the stamping again with StazOn right on top of the photo itself. I adhered the numbers on top. I decided not to add the 2025 because that was it's already in another place. And then I'm also using the chipboard 2025 on the outside of the album. And I think that's my front page. You can see right there. And I believe, that one already has the 2025 on it. So I mainly just, the photo that I added with the chalkboard, like at one point I thought maybe I would do a little bit more writing there, or I would add in a reason why or something like that. But I ended up not doing that this time and just repeated the other thing. One thing I do have at the end of the album though, is I did a Substack after Week in Life was done with some reflections on the week, and that has been added in at the end of the album. Another thing that you might be noticing here, and something that I just did, is along the edges of both the transparencies and my full page photos, I used a 1-inch circle punch to punch a half circle out of along the edge of the photo or the pattern paper. I love that as I love having a notch in there. It feels like it becomes like a page turner. So you can kind of see that as you look through the album. Here's where I'm adding in another phrase sticker. So at this point in the process, I have everything in my album. And what I'm doing right now for the rest of the little bit of this video is simply going in and adding some of the some phrase stickers on there, because those are the ones that I liked. But you can see how the formula has been repeated throughout the entirety of the album as I kind of work through where some of these things, I still want them to go. Look at that full page, that photo that spreads across 2 pages is a close-up of some roses, and I love it so much. Just such a fun way to really go big with some of these things. So that's essentially it. I will have another video for you guys in the next couple of days here that's just a full walkthrough without any talking, so you can see the full album itself. Like I also said, I'll add in additional images of each of the different pages on the blog in the next couple of days too. Really the last thing for me was just going back in and looking at all of the different spots and adding in those word phrase stickers. One last thing I wanted to show you in this particular video here is this was I think on Sunday, and you can see that I almost didn't even have any additional photos, so I had to go print see if I could find some extra ones that I hadn't used and or different versions of some other photos so that I would have at least some to add into Sunday. I didn't take very many photos on Sunday at all. So this one just has one strip of the 2x2s there, and that was kind of what I wanted to show you. So you can, again, depending on how many photos you have, other ephemera, you could punch a bunch of different things out of 2x2s that you wanted to add them in if you want more 2x2 pockets on there rather than fewer of them. I think that was the main thing I wanted to show you guys here at the end. Yeah, that's it. Let me know if you guys have any questions in the comments below. Absolutely labor of love, this project. I'm so, as usual, glad to have it all wrapped up again. But I'm so thankful that I took the time to do it, to put it together. And thank you too for your patience, as it took me a little bit longer to bring it together this year. But I actually feel I don't feel like that ended up being a bad thing for me. It ended up giving me a little bit more time and space. And then when I was working on it, I felt less in a hurry. And I think that was something that I really noticed this year. Additional reflections and information you can find in the blog post, and I'll be back here soon with the full walkthrough video.